So to start off with, we need a fast response. So if we go back to that case study, what they had was someone triaging the inbox. So as soon as the lead came through, bang, someone called them. They didn't get them, they sent a text. They didn't. If they didn't respond to the text, they sent an email. But there was a specific protocol that we put in place, specific messaging that we put in place. But straight away, as soon as the lead comes in, you call them as soon as you can. Ideally, within 5 minutes. Your likelihood of being able to get hold of someone goes absolutely into the toilet after 5 minutes.
Welcome to the Master Dealmakers Secrets podcast. And now, here's sales growth strategist, John Blake.
Welcome to Master Dealmakers Secrets. I'm John Blake. This is episode 234. And today, we're going to talk about the 3 keys to engaging your digital leads. The 3 keys to engaging more of your digital leads, which means that if you can engage more of them, you can convert more of them. So I guess really the title is the 3 keys to engage more of the digital paid leads that you are investing in your business. But before we do that, if you've got leads that you've spoken to, that you've made an offer to that haven't converted yet, I want you to head over to johnblakeaudio.com. You will get the exact word for word system that I install with the paid clients that I work with over the ongoing program that we run with them to help them to improve their conversions. So this is one piece of the puzzle, one piece of around 7 different systems that we install in their businesses. This one is the follow-up piece. So how you can convert more of the actual leads that you've made an offer to that haven't bought yet. It is at johnblakeaudio.com. What you'll get is a 15-minute audio which walks you exactly step-by-step through the whole system. But what you'll also get is a PDF that's got the exact word-for-word scripts, exactly what to write in your emails, exactly what to say when you call over a 90-day period. When you put it into practice, or you get someone on your team to put it into practice, which is really easy to do, you will absolutely convert more. I have got people who call me on a regular basis, both clients and people that listen to the podcast, that have put this into practice, and it simply works. It is something that I have knocked into shape through trial and error. Over the last 20 years, I've used it myself, and I have installed it in so many different businesses that I can't even remember. So go and grab it, johnblakeaudio.com, put it into practice, and let me know how you go with it. I'd love to hear about your results. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this whole idea. So a couple of episodes ago, I gave you a case study of a client that I worked with that was spending $100,000 a month on leads, and they were only connecting with about 30% of those leads, which is low. It's sadly it's probably the average. It's the benchmark, but it is low, and it is something that you can, if you put the right systems in place, improve. And so what we did is we helped them to put a better system in place, and you can go and watch the episode. I guess it was episode 232. And you can have a listen to it. But in a nutshell, what we did is we put a system in place where we, 1, contacted them a lot earlier. 2, we had a specific messaging approach, a specific messaging protocol that we used to get a hold of them. And then in doing so, we were able to engage a higher percentage of the leads. And obviously we put some different systems in place in terms of what they actually did with those leads, what they said to them, the questions that they asked them when they first got them on the call. But the spark plug that really caused that, the small hinge that really caused them to go from $600,000 weeks to $1 million weeks was really just this front end piece. And interestingly enough, this front end piece never even existed like 30, 40 years ago. And the analogy I often use is a pool client that I work with that sells pools, the biggest manufacturer of fiberglass pools in the Southern Hemisphere. And they've got pool displays. So they've got half a dozen pools that are set up where people can come in, check out the pools, choose the pool that they want, and they can buy a pool. Now, 40 years ago, this business has been going for over 50 years, but 40 years ago, they had reps that work for them, that still work for them now. And when you wanted to buy a pool, it was pretty simple. Like you found out where the display was, you got in the car, put petrol in the car, you drove to the display, you parked out the front, you walked in, you spoke to a salesperson, you chose a pool, and you bought one. Right now, it's very different to that. What are you going to do? Like, we're going to buy a pool. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to check out their Facebook page. We need to check out their Google reviews, and we'll do a Google search, and we'll see what pools are in the area, and we'll get 5 quotes and see if we can get the lowest possible quote. So we're going to have 5 tabs open. We're going to submit 5 different contact forms, and it's probably going to happen at about 9 p.m., 9:30, and the average person's probably going to have had 2, maybe 3 glasses of red wine before they do this, and they'll hit submit, and then tomorrow morning they're going to get a bunch of messages and people that are thinking that they've got a hot lead, salespeople that are going to think that they've got a hot lead, and this contact storm, this contact maelstrom is going to begin. So it's like, how do you get through that? How do you navigate through that? So what we're going to cover is that. So I think I've sufficiently painted the picture and set the scene. So how do we convert a higher number of digital leads that we get, right? So these are leads that have probably found you on Google. They might have found you on Facebook, and they have come into your inbox. Most of the businesses that I deal with that are paying for leads will have had some kind of a form completed, and they will receive an email with hopefully a first name, an email address, and a telephone number. So what do we do? Well, the higher level summary of this is really 3 things. We need to engage that lead, right? So what is it? What do we need to do to engage that lead as quickly as possible? So engaging is creating a response. But in order for us to be able to create a response, our initial contact needs to have a set of aspects to it, which I will go through. So the first part is engaging with the lead. How do we engage? Rules of engagement. Second part of that is we need to create a response. And I'm going to talk more about this in a sec. So first step, engage. Second step, create a response. And third step is convert. So we need to convert them at that point, not into a sale, just into a conversation or into an appointment, right? And so this is a game that really didn't need to be played 40 years ago, but it's certainly a game that needs to be played now. And it's absolutely a game that you need to play if you want to engage a higher number of the leads that you're paying for. And it's a game that you need to play well if you are going to increase the number. Like I said, the benchmark's about 30%. As insane as that sounds, for every 10 leads that is paid for, that a business receives, they often only end up talking to about 30% of them. So this is a really, really important piece of the puzzle. Okay, so we'll start with engage. So to start off with, we need a fast response. So if we go back to that case study, what they had was someone triaging the inbox. So as soon as the lead came through, bang, someone called them. They didn't get them, they sent a text. They didn't. If they didn't respond to the text, they sent an email. But there was a specific protocol that we put in place, specific messaging that we put in place. But straight away, as soon as the lead comes in, you call them as soon as you can. Ideally, within 5 minutes. Your likelihood of being able to get hold of someone goes absolutely into the toilet after 5 minutes. So if you can have somebody that triages that inbox, soon as the lead comes in, you call them straight away. So fast response. Then the second part of that is we need to send them an easy, if we don't get them on the phone, which is going to happen, like a fairly large chunk of people aren't going to pick the phone up, we want to send them a text message. And we want to text them with a really easy question to answer, because we want to create, we're texting them to simply create a response. But the question that we ask needs to be relevant to their inquiry, but it is designed specifically to get a response. That's all we want to start off with, get a response. And the question that we ask needs to be relevant, and it needs to be not too invasive. The question can't be too invasive to start off with. It needs to be a simple question that they can answer. So that's the engage piece. The mistakes that I often see people make here is that they respond too slowly, which, as I said, after 5 minutes, your likelihood of getting a response goes into the toilet. They give them too much information, so they send too much information. So they'll send something like, "Thanks so much for your inquiry. It'd be great for us to catch up. I've got a couple of different spots next week or the week after. What would suit you best?" Way too much, way too much. And they send a question that's too hard to respond to. So they'll send it like an essay question. So one of the worst questions that you could ask is, what was it that made you decide to get in contact with us? Because the answer to that is a long question, all right? It needs to be a really easy to question that you can answer on one of these things, all right? Otherwise, they're going to look at it and go, "Oh, yeah, I'll do that later," but they won't do it later. So that's the engage piece. And the second piece is the response. We want to create a response. So what we want to create is what we call the volley effect. You may have heard me talk about this on James Schramko's podcast. If you listen to James's podcast, one of the things we talked about was the volley effect. We need to create a cadence of communication backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And then every response we get, we need to respond with another question. Okay, so every response we get, and typically what this would look like is that, so lead comes in, you send them the question, they respond, you respond with another question, and then they respond again. And the second response will give you what Dean Jackson calls the love letter, which is about 2 or 3 that they probably elaborate. They'll respond with 2 or 3 different paragraphs. And we want to keep it relevant. So the questions need to be relevant. If we ask an irrelevant question, they will not answer it. Okay, so the questions need to be easy to respond to, and they need to be relevant. The mistakes we can make here is we can respond with too much information too early. We can ask for information that's too invasive for that particular part of the sales process, and we can respond without asking a question. Okay, that's how we can shoot ourselves in the foot in the response part of the process. And then the conversion piece, we want to ask a question, probably our second question or our third question, that alludes to a level of complexity that would not be appropriate for text. Now, there are situations where you can actually make the sale via text, right? $2,000 to $20,000 purchases can be made via text. But if your goal and if your business relies on a conversation taking place, which, let's face it, most things are going to require a conversation, we need to, in our questions, we need to uncover an area that perhaps they hadn't thought about that alludes to a level of complexity that would make a telephone call appropriate. I'll say that again. So the questions that we ask the answers need to allude to a certain level of complexity that make a telephone conversation appropriate for this particular interaction. Okay, so this is, as you can imagine, requires a bit of wordsmithing and a bit of thought to come up with the right questions to ask at the right time. But I can tell you, if you get this right, you can add another 10, 20, even 30% response to the digital leads that you're paying for. So we need to ask for that at the appropriate time. So there's a certain amount of backwards and forwards that needs to take place before we ask to move the conversation to a telephone call. And if we were selling via text, it would be to move the conversation to sending them a link to an overview of your offer. And the mistakes that we can make here is that we can definitely ask too early. We can try to move the conversation to a telephone call too early. we can scare them off by asking information that's, again, too invasive or too intrusive for that particular part of the interaction with us. And we can ask a question that's not relevant or appropriate. So to summarize, we need to engage, we need to be fast, we need to have an easy question to answer, and we need to ask questions that are relevant and not too invasive. We need to create a response. We do that by creating the volley effect, by asking some simple, easy to answer questions that go backwards and forwards. We need to keep it relevant. And then to convert, we need to allude to a certain level of complexity by the questions that we ask. We need to move to ask for them to jump on a call with us at the appropriate time. So I hope that helps. If you need some help with that, please let me know. This is what I do. But if you are investing in paid leads, there is a significant investment, and the investment is not getting any lower. It's always going to be increasing. Every time you're going to need to increase. They change the algorithms all the time. And so the more of those paid leads that you can actually talk to, the better return you can get on your advertising investment. I hope this helps. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you on the next podcast. Cheers.
You've been listening to Master Dealmaker Secrets with John Blake. Subscribe to get more in-depth strategies and maximize your sales process with new episodes every other week. And double your inquiry to sale conversion with the lead flow you already have. Go to johnblakeaudio.com for his exclusive, free, no-fluff audio training and companion PDF guide.